Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping right into a stack of source material today, curated specifically for you.
Yeah, the idea is cutting through the noise.
Exactly. Getting a sharp, informed picture of what's happening on, well, on a very specific topic today. And today, our deep dive is laser focused on the cryptocurrency market. We're looking at reports just from today, June 13th, 2025.
hmm And we've got a mix, right? Market prices, news driving things, institutional moves.
That's right. Market price reports, news about specific events impacting the market, and updates on institutional activity. Our mission, pretty
Yeah.
simple, distill this info, understand the key movements and drivers mentioned in these sources.
Find the surprises, maybe.
Yeah, pull out anything surprising and just see what larger picture emerges when we look at them all together. And just glancing at this stack, it's clear these sources point to a day of pretty significant activity and volatility.
Right, and that synthesis part is so crucial. Crypto throws so much information at you, like constantly. So pulling together these specific threads from the sources you gathered, that helps us spot the signal in the noise. Understand what these reports are really emphasizing right now.
Absolutely. So, based on what's in these articles, here are the key areas we're going to explore. First, the overall market performance today. We'll get into the specific numbers mentioned.
Okay.
Then we'll look at the potential reasons the reports are giving for these movements. Seems like there's quite a bit on external pressures.
hmm And we should definitely highlight the very real impact on traders, what the liquidation data tells us.
Oh, for sure. Big numbers there.
And we'll see which specific assets popped up in these sources today too, whether for trending reasons or project news.
Good point. And finally, we'll cover the institutional side reported here, some interesting signals about adoption, long-term vision. So these are the crucial nuggets our sources provide. We'll explore them to give you that clear, concise overview of today's reported events in crypto. So let's start with the headline numbers. What picture do the sources paint market performance today?
Well, the data cited in one report, it specifies coin market cap data as of 3400 p.m. KST, that's Korea Standard Time. It shows pretty widespread losses.
Widespread losses. Okay. How significant for the big ones like Bitcoin, Ethereum?
Yeah, the report gives specifics there. Bitcoin BTC was down 3.32%, sitting at $104,204.
Okay. 104K and ETH.
Ethereum saw it's steeper decline, actually, down 9.18%.
Wow. Okay. So a definite downward trend for the majors mentioned there. Were there any exceptions? Anything going up in these reports?
Yes, interestingly, the same report that highlights those losses points out one asset, AB, they managed to buck the trend.
Really?
Yeah, showed a gain of 6.43%. So, while the overall tide was going out, according to these reports, at least one coin saw some upward movement.
That contrast is interesting. So general picture, red, but maybe not uniformly red.
Exactly. A few green outliers mentioned.
Now, the sources don't just give us the numbers. They try to explain why. What reasons are cited for this downturn in the volatility?
Several articles connect the market moves to, broader global events. One report draws a pretty direct link
A direct link to what?
between recent geopolitical tensions,
Yeah.
specifically mentioning Israel's military actions and the cryptocurrency market crash. It actually attributes massive liquidations and volatility to this.
Wow. Okay. So a direct line being drawn in that report from conflict to crypto prices. That's significant.
It is, and it's not the only external factor mentioned.
Oh, what else?
Another source brings up concerns fueled by an oil price surge. Notes that crypto markets were reportedly, keeping a close eye on that.
Oil prices too, okay?
Yeah, it just highlights how interconnected the market is perceived to be, according to these articles, even with things that seem unrelated on the surface.
It really underscores the number of different pressures the market is reportedly reacting to. And that reaction, it seems like it had a very tangible impact on traders. You mentioned liquidations earlier.
Absolutely, huge impact. One report focuses heavily on this, stating liquidations topped over $1 billion in the last 24 hours.
$1 billion in a day.
In the last 24 hours, yeah. It's a massive number.
So what does that tell us, according to the sources? What's the significance?
Well, the report breaks it down a bit. It notes a really significant chunk, $943 million, came from liquidating long positions.
Long positions, so people betting on prices going up.
Exactly. Traders who were betting on prices rising got wiped out. The report frames this figure as signaling, quote, big waves ahead and a volatility alert.
So it's presented as a direct measure of these sharp price swings hitting leverage traders hard.
Very much so. Nearly $1 billion from longs.
Mm-hmm.
That really puts the volatility the other articles mentioned into stark perspective.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's definitely a critical piece of the picture these sources are painting about the market's current state.
Okay, so moving beyond this sort of macro picture and external pressures, the sources also highlight specific assets, right? Which ones stood out?
They did. One article lists BNB, Polkadot, and BlackRock, calls them top trending crypto 2025, gives them specific mentions.
Okay, trending. But trending for what reasons? Did they give details?
Yes, some specifics. That report notes BNB saw a huge surge, 275%.
Wow.
It mentions Polkadot's rise too. And then specifically for BlackRock, it points to the X1 Miner app as a driving force.
An app.
Yeah, saying it's pushing mass adoption in like 150 plus countries, and this is all ahead of its upcoming go live.
So even with the overall market reported down today, specific projects like BlackRock are getting attention for, concrete developments, like an app launch driving adoption.
Exactly. Alongside price moves in others like BNB, it shows that individual project narratives and fundamentals still matter and are seen as drivers, even when the broader market's choppy. According to these sources, anyway.
That makes sense. Let's shift gears slightly then to the institutional landscape. That's also covered in your stack. News from Japan.
Yes. One report notes that a Japan-based company has officially announced its Bitcoin purchase.
Officially announced. So they bought some BTC.
Yep. Joining a growing group of traditional companies adding Bitcoin to their balance sheets. The article mentions they'd actually signaled this back in February.
Ah, so this is a follow-through.
Exactly. It reported follow-through on that plan, a concrete step.
Okay, that's interesting. A traditional company making the move. And speaking of big players, BlackRock also comes up.
It does. One report discusses this, circulating ambition within the digital asset world. BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager.
Yeah.
They're reportedly targeting $50 billion in crypto assets under management AUM by 2030.
50 billion with a B.
By 2030. That's the number reported. $50 billion.
That's not small change. It suggests a pretty strong long-term conviction from a major player, doesn't it? At least according to this report.
It definitely provides a significant contrast to the day-to-day volatility we were just talking about.
Good point.
These bits of institutional news, the Japan purchase report, BlackRock's ambitious target, they suggest that institutional interest and adoption are still a major underlying theme, even with all the short-term price swings reported today.
Okay, so we've really pulled apart the key threads from the sources you provided us. Let's recap quickly.
Sounds good.
We covered the reported downward market trend today, saw those specific price drops for BTC and ETH, but also that outlier, AB, going up.
Right, and we saw how the reports link things like geopolitical events, military actions mentioned specifically, and oil price concerns to market volatility and those big liquidations.
Yeah, those liquidations. The sheer scale reported over $1 billion in 24 hours, mostly longs, really underscores the impact on traders, as reported. And then we touched on specific assets highlighted BNB, Polkadot, BlackRock in that trending context, with some concrete details like BNB's surge and BlackRock's reported app adoption driving things.
Plus, those signals of ongoing institutional involvement. The Japanese company's reported purchase, BlackRock's big 2030 vision.
Exactly. Looking at all these pieces together from your stack, it definitely gives a much richer, more connected picture than just, seeing random headlines.
For sure. It avoids that siloed view.
And what really emerges, I think, when you synthesize all this from these specific sources is a picture of a market being pulled in, starkly different directions at the same time.
Right. That's a good way to put it. On one hand, you see the immediate, sometimes brutal impact of global events, causing sharp volatility, big losses for traders, like that liquidation data shows.
Yeah, the short-term pain.
But then on the other hand, these sources also highlight these continued, deliberate moves by major institutional players, signaling long-term conviction, growing adoption. They seem to be looking way beyond today's price action.
So it's this tension, this duality.
Exactly. Understanding the duality, the market sensitivity to immediate global stuff alongside these persistent long-term institutional moves, that's maybe a key takeaway from this set of sources today. Helps you navigate the noise a bit, seeing the different forces reportedly at play.
So, wrapping up, you now have, hopefully, a distilled overview of some significant events and reported drivers in the crypto market today, June 13th, based specifically on this set of sources you shared with us.
It's a snapshot,
Yeah.
a market in motion, influenced by a lot of different factors, clearly.
Right. And maybe as we finish this deep dive, here's a final thought for you to consider, building on what we've just unpacked from these sources.
Okay.
Given this snapshot, we've seen this confluence of geopolitical triggers reportedly causing sharp drops and huge liquidations. And at the same time, reports of continued strong institutional interest, those ambitious long-term targets like BlackRock's $50 billion AUM goal. What does this specific combination of forces, as highlighted in these particular sources, tell us about the fundamental nature of the crypto market right now? And, how might this push and pull between that short-term volatility and the long-term conviction shape its future trajectory?
Yeah, that's definitely something to chew on, how those forces balance out.
Something to think about.